Final Fantasy XI is a big game. One of my favorite aspects of it is its vast size, making you really feel like you're a part of a larger world and not just a collection of digital areas. It just celebrated its 16th anniversary, and over those many years of expansions, updates, and just general tweaks, zones ranging from full-on deserts to tiny beaches where you can garden with your Moogle have been continuously introduced, each time increasing the digital acreage of this enormous game. Which is why the topic of this video is so hard for me, my top 5 favorite zones from the original release. So hey guys, it's Done4Games, bringing you as always a healthy mix of videos on new releases and MMOs, and nostalgia trips for the classics that made us fall in love with games in the first place. And part of that nostalgia is driven by the beautiful art style that Final Fantasy XI pulled off so well, and it wouldn't be the game we remember without the environment really breathing life into Vana'diel. But like I said, Vana'diel is just too enormous these days, so I'll be breaking this series into best and worst zones from each expansion. For this one, I'll focus only on the original release, which is weird for me, because the earliest I got my hands on the game, it still already had Zillart included. So in honestly no particular order, let's get right into it. So for number 5, Balcombe Dunes. Balcombe Dunes has some pretty bittersweet memories for most people, with few gear options, even fewer abilities or spells, and usually no sub-job. Every type of mistake that can be made by new players is happening simultaneously, and every square inch of the zone is being taken up by some other group trying to squeeze in a few levels themselves. But apart from all that, it was truly the first MMO moment for many players, where all 3 starting cities came together in this common zone to level through the Thames towards level 20. It's hard to express to someone who hasn't experienced it what it's like to first step off that boat into Selbina and the Dunes. As a new player to MMOs, coming from a moderately busy starting city to quiet starting zones and then being thrust into the thick of it with this bustling corner of Vana'diel, there were just players everywhere, all engaged in different activities, shouting for members of replacements, camping notorious monsters, just traveling through to get to the boat. It was just beautiful, sunny chaos. Because besides the personal impact of the players and activity, the zone itself was just gorgeous. White sandy beaches with trees bursting out of the sand while waves continue to crash in day after day, awesome sunsets, an oasis or two speckling the landscape, a wrecked ship here or there, and it had secrets too, tunnels to hidden beaches that didn't appear on any map, leading to zones far too difficult for any player to attempt to explore. If you could survive the social experience of your first couple parties, Balcombe Dunes would have you hooked on Final Fantasy XI for life. Of course, not every zone is so amazingly memorable because of how busy it was, leading us to number 4, Rollenberry Fields. Rollenberry Fields was just a pretty zone. I mean, the field for which it's named were like these vineyards with colorful crawlers sneaking in and out of the rows of Rollenberries. While enemies don't make a zone, the combination of crawlers, gobus, bees, and the rare and imposing Malboros just made the zone feel like Final Fantasy at its core. The music just reinforced that feeling that this was a place that could occur only in Final Fantasy, that nothing like it ever had or ever will exist in the world we live in, and that just felt cool. And the weather, oh my god, the weather. Beautiful sunny days to the occasional downpour, this zone just felt alive. Traveling through on your way to Crawler's Nest, it reinforced the idea that Vana'diel was in many ways still an untamed wilderness. But unlike some zones that I frankly could have left to the mobs that inhabited them, I wanted Rollenberry back. Not that it was the most dangerous zone in the game, but the constant threat of gobus and goblins made you tread carefully down the path if you weren't at a higher level. One of the great pass-throughs of the game, there were rarely many reasons to remain in Rollenberry, and maybe that's why it stayed so special to this day. But if Rollenberry was a common route, a path that players often traversed, it pales in comparison to these next 2 that I'm splitting for number 3, Konstadt Highlands and Lothane Plateau. Yeah, I'm cheating here, but anyone who's ever mixed these 2 up in their heads or during a conversation probably understands why I put them together. They mirror each other in basically every way, even with their rumbling notorious monsters. These 2 zones were nexus points in Vana'diel, with teleport crags at their center, and the fact that they were a natural highway from the starting cities on towards Juno or Balcombe Dunes. Each is frankly just gorgeous. From Konstadt's wide open plains and windmills to Lothane's valleys and cliffs, each felt like it just went on forever and you'd never see the whole zone. As lame as it sounds, they just feel very MMO-like. There was a wide array of enemy types, both had hidden dungeons hiding somewhere on the map. The crags were massive and imposing and mysterious, and it always seemed like notorious monsters and quests were hiding right around the corner. The Summoner quest and its circle of stones, the secret pass down into the valleys and Ordel's caves, and the colorful trees lining the road, Lothane just left a lasting impression. And while the walk from end to end was painfully long, I never really seemed to mind that much. And whenever I needed to solo a few levels, Conchtown Highland just seemed like the perfect zone for a relaxing afternoon of sheep and goblins next to some windmills. It was just awesome. Of course, not all my favorite zones were fun in games, because up at number 2 was frankly a real piece of work. Galesburg Outpost. Galesburg Outpost and its continuation, Fort Galesburg, were frighteningly close to Sandoria, which is part of what made it so charming. New players could very easily wander too close, accidentally and suddenly finding themselves in the dangerous Orcish stronghold. The zone is enormous, with towering plateaus opening up to clear blue skies, and frightening orc structures littering the area. As you travel through the zone, it really feels like you're leaving the valley floor and making your way up to the high plateaus. I haven't seen a Final Fantasy XI zone touch verticality like Galesburg does. By the end, you can see the very bottom far below you, and what's awesome is you can actually go there. And once you finally emerge from all of this, sneaking or murdering your way through countless orcs, you're gifted with Fort Galesburg itself. A slightly less inviting zone, if that's even possible. It's truly a fort in function and name. Cliff walls covered in frightening spikes, and each path blocked by small camps of ever more orcs. But if you can make your way past them, you'll eventually come to a rickety elevator built to get to the upper orc camps, and up we go. While they're technically separate zones, I never really think of them that way, and their shared art style and theme pretty much blend them together. But this enhances their impact more than distracting from it, driving a feeling of a truly massive orc population, practically at Sandoria's gates. Both the fort and outpost have rope bridges suspended high above the valley floor, leading from camp to camp. Notorious monsters feel like they should emerge from every hut, making you want to stay in camp at each for a bit to see if you can get them to pop. Streams can be seen flowing through the distant valley floor, giving everything the impression of having been crafted by millennia of slow natural erosion. Between numerous quests and BC&Ms, players would return here countless times, but in all those trips, I can say I never really got tired of it. It's one of my favorite Beastman zones in Final Fantasy XI. Leading us at last to our final spot, which is the first zone I think of whenever somebody mentions Final Fantasy XI. Number 1, Quiffum Island. Now many of you may be shaking your head saying, well, Quiffum's boring as hell, and it's basically the Dunes round 2. And you're not wrong, but if Balcombe Dunes was that warm and welcoming area that screamed, MMOs are fun, see all these people enjoying a day at the beach and leveling a bit, Quiffum Island was the other side of that coin, reminding you that this game meant business. A stark cold wasteland, it had frightening cliffs exposing the zone to a raw, probably frozen ocean. More spines of whatever mythical creature had died long before in Vana'diel's history ran down its center, and at night, undead and bogies would emerge and make most of the zone so dangerous it was basically unusable. But despite all that, it was one of my favorite places to be in Final Fantasy XI. It was always busy, making the frozen emptiness of it seem more like a challenge than a miserable state of being. There was so much mystery, with secret paths leading down to hidden caves guarded by dangerous kraken, which for a long time in the game I had no idea what was down there, what it was for. Long winding tunnels that eventually took you to a zone called Behemoth's Dominion if you didn't get lost trying to traverse them. I remember the first time I entered the zone, I got a cold sweat and just left just seeing the name, because I knew what a behemoth was, and I was like, I was convinced he'd appear right there and just like end me. And like many other zones, it had a giant crag on one end, but this one had no teleport crystal, adding to the general unease that something about this whole region just wasn't right. Everything felt slightly off in the best possible way. And on top of all this was the weather. Blizzards were commonly reducing visibility to almost nothing, and general snow and cloudiness reigned whenever those blizzards weren't raging. But very rarely a truly sunny day would appear, and it was like the zone was an entirely new place altogether. It just seemed to come alive, and all at once shift from this dreary death hole to a happy winter wonderland. Of course, it never lasted long, but the brief juxtaposition again just made the zone feel so alive, and it was incredible. Guys, I hope you enjoyed my top favorite zones of the original areas, and if yours wasn't on this list, I do apologize, because honestly, it was really hard for me to narrow down which I loved more. Some honorable mentions include all the starter zones and cities. I had to really hold myself back because it seemed like cheating to include any of those, but they were just so well crafted. Hortoto Ruins, King Rampier's Tomb, Ordell's Caves, all incredibly cool, sneaky zones that felt like achievements when they were first finally actually explored. Castles of Valbailes and its keep was one of the most badass zones I've ever experienced, but I absolutely hated being there and wanted nothing more than to leave, so I wasn't really sure it fit on this list. Keep on the lookout for more videos like this. You guys have been asking for these for a while, but we've got a bunch of simultaneous series going on right now, so it'll probably take a while to get through all of the best and worst of each expansion. As always, let me know in the comments which I should have included and which were super dumb on my part to put on this top 5 list. Otherwise, I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, you should totally think about subscribing. I've got videos coming out twice a week, and if you like this one, there's at least a chance you like some of the others that are very similar to this, so live dangerously. Let me know what you guys thought about the video in the comments and other videos you'd like to see. And finally, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Huntin for Games to keep up with all the latest stuff. See ya!